representing a very large percentage of the audience, I think, are farmers and land managers, and that's particularly relevant given the fact that we are literally on the eve of the close of the consultation paper, which will hopefully herald in a new chapter of food and farming in this country. We are particularly delighted that Michael Gove, the Secretary of State, is with us. He can only be with us until 3 p.m. and then he will have to go. And Minette Batters, newly elected President of the NFU. The plan is for the Secretary of State to speak, for Minette to speak, and then to open it up for some discussion with the two of them here. And at about 3, I think you will have to go, and then we will carry on the discussion and open it up and make it as wide as possible until the end of the session. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce the Secretary of State, who needs no introduction, but I will say this about you. I have been involved with a lot of ministers and secretaries of states in my rather long period of advocacy for sustainable agriculture, but I have never encountered an office person with such vision and such a radical perspective, and we are really thrilled that you are here to address us today. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. It's an incredibly generous introduction. And I want to thank you. I want to thank your team, and I also want to thank Sir Alan and Lady Parker. I've been privileged enough to know Alan and Jane before I took on this government role, and you'd be hard pushed to find 2 more public-spirited people in British life. It's an honour to know Sir Alan. It's a pleasure to know Jane, and what they've achieved together in so many fields is so incredibly impressive. But what they're achieving here at Fir Farm is truly outstanding as well, and in many ways this is the ideal venue for this conference, because Fir Farm is a model of sustainable food production. The livestock which is reared here, from the pedigree Hereford cows to rare breed pigs, provide precisely the sort of healthy, high-quality food which demonstrates that there is a bright future for British farming. And the future of British farming is my subject today. We at DEFRA, as Patrick mentioned, are consulting on the future shape of British food production and the wider future of our countryside at the moment. And that consultation so far has been like Fir Farm itself, productive, high quality, and encouraging to all those of us who want to see farming flourish. But, farmers being farmers, there have been some tough questions which have been asked of DEFRA during this consultation. And one of the most common questions has been, why on earth have you called your consultation paper Health and Harmony? As one person put it, Health and Harmony? That sounds like a forgotten Jane Austen novel. After Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, here comes a surprise sequel. Well, delighted as I am to think that my colleagues in DEFRA have produced a volume which could one day be adapted by Julian Fellows for a Sunday evening TV blockbuster, the reason behind the naming of the command paper is much more prosaic. Health and Harmony sums up in just 3 words how we at DEFRA feel we should all be thinking about the priorities for our new food and farming policy. Because food can be many things. It can be delicious, it can be an export earner. It is, of course, our biggest manufacturing business. But ultimately, food is there to sustain us, to keep us healthy. Food production is fundamentally about the health of human beings, all of us. And if our methods of food production don't contribute to improving human health, then we need to ask why. But how we produce our food is also about the health of the environment, our universal life support system. The soil in which cereals and vegetables are grown, the pastures which grazing livestock turn into protein, the rivers which keep our landscapes verdant, all of these need to be protected and enhanced. Otherwise, we're hacking at the roots of the tree of life. So I believe there doesn't need to be a tension between growing healthy food and securing a healthier environment. Indeed, the right politics should hold the 2 of them in harmony. Hence, health and harmony. And it's my aim as we leave the European Union to ensure that we achieve both. This is an unfrozen moment in which the agricultural policies which have for so long been designed by others are back in our control. And I want to use this opportunity to ensure that we have a food and farming policy and also a policy for the environment and natural world that don't just coexist, but actively complement one another. Now, I know that for some, these two aims, healthy food production and a flourishing environment, are inevitably in tension. Some believe, or act as though they believe, that there are two armed camps in the countryside. Farmers on the one side, environmentalists on the other, and the two can never be reconciled. But I think that view is not just irredeemably pessimistic, it's also a twisting of the truth. Everyone in this room, indeed all of us who know and love the countryside, recognise that it's those who work the land, whose lives and livelihoods are bound up with growing food and rearing animals, who have the most intimate relationship with, and thus the greatest attachment to, the landscapes and the habitats which are our shared inheritance. As my friend Moira Graymond, Minette's predecessor as president of the NFU, put it, farmers are the original friends of the earth. And that's why I want as many active working farmers as possible to contribute to our consultation. This consultation is intended to be a conversation between government and farmers, not a set of marching orders. And I believe in the wisdom of crowds. I know that policy is better developed through the open examination of propositions in democratic debate and their refinement through public argument and evidence testing. It's better developed that way than it is through private lobbying and the assertion of vested interests. And my experience from the consultation that we undertook on how to protect wildlife by restricting the sale of ivory is that there is widespread public interest in everything that DEFRA does. We generated more than 70,000 responses to that consultation, and those responses changed our mind in government. They helped shape the eventual policy conclusions for the better. So it's my ambition to ensure that everyone who cares about food, farming and the environment contributes to this consultation. And that was only reinforced by a column that I read in last week's Farmers Weekly from the always readable Joe Stanley. Joe, who's an arable farmer from Leicestershire, expressed his fears that Health and Harmony was a vehicle which had been hijacked by, in his words, narrow interest groups, self-styled eco-warriors, and the willfully uninformed. Don't know who he was talking about. Anyway, it is not a description that I recognise. But if Joe and others fear that that may be the outcome of our consultation, then my invitation to them, to everyone, is to make the case for the future food, farming, environmental landscape that they wish to see in order to shape the consultation, wrong to be shaped by it. And of course, it's because I want the widest possible contribution to our consultation that I don't want here and now to preempt its outcome. But there's definitely one powerful impression that I've already been left with by those who've responded so far. And that is that as a department and as a government, we need to say more about food. Now, I would argue that food is now more central to government thinking than for a generation, with DEFRA now a much more high-profile government department than for many years. And of course, the new Food and Drink Sector Council is preparing a sector deal for food producers as part of the government's industrial strategy. That work's explicitly designed to help food production to ensure that we boost exports, to ensure that the benefits of technological advances are properly shared, and to improve skills right across the food chain. These are all changes that we're working on, which are designed to improve productivity. And a more productive food and farming sector is critical to our future. But the nature of the conversation that our consultation has given rise to underlines that we need to do much more than simply think about increasing productivity. We need to think more deeply about food policy. Because there is, as this conference attests, a growing public interest in where our food comes from, how it's grown, how animals are kept, what the impact of particular methods of cultivation might be on our earth. And there is a growing public interest in the impact of our current diet on our health. We're moving from a world where the major killers were communicable diseases, such as malaria or other infections, to one where the principal causes of mortality now are non-communicable diseases, or NCDs, such as heart and lung disease, cancer, and diabetes. They accounted for 89% of deaths in the UK in 2014, according to the World Health Organization. And a major driver of that increase in NCDs has been our diet. Obesity overall, and childhood obesity in particular, have been rising. and it's often the poorest in our society who've been the worst affected. Fast and processed foods, which are high in the wrong fats, sugar, salt, and other additives, form too large a part of our national diet, and particularly so in more deprived communities. Now, the government is taking action to tackle the public health problems that have arisen from a poor diet, because we have children growing up simultaneously undernourished and obese, and that's insupportable in a nation as rich as ours. So we're challenging supermarkets, sales outlets, and others to play their part in tackling this problem. But while it's uncomfortable for some, this drive to improve public health is an opportunity for others, and specifically for Britain's farmers. Because a balanced diet, rich in fresh fruit and vegetables, beans, pulses and cereals, fresh dairy produce, and protein sources, such as fresh fish, offal, and properly sourced meat, is critical to human health and flourishing. And we're lucky in the UK that we've got the climate, the landscape, the farm businesses, and the entrepreneurial farmers perfectly equipped to provide all the ingredients for just that balanced and healthy diet. Whether it's the beef and dairy farmers of the southwest, the salad and vegetable growers of East Anglia and the Fens, the upland sheep farmers of Mid Wales, Cumbria and Northumberland, or the arable farmers of Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire, or the soft fruit growers in Kent and Angus, the potato and carrot farmers of Aberdeenshire and Lincolnshire, the pig farmers of Wiltshire and Ulster, or the chicken farmers of Norfolk and Gloucestershire. Across this country, the farmers of the United Kingdom combined produce all the basic foodstuffs which combine to make for a healthy diet and a healthy food economy. And that's why I refuse to succumb to the pessimism that some feel about the future of British farming. We already produce the best food in the world and are capable of producing more to satisfy both domestic demand and new export markets. And across those markets, the growth is all in one direction. Consumers are demanding healthier choices, healthier for themselves and healthier for the environment. And again, there is no reason why those two should be in tension, as we see here at Fir Farm. Fir Farm is a highly productive and profitable business dedicated to supplying high-quality food to a range of outlets. And it succeeds so well because customers know that the very highest standards of animal welfare and environmental stewardship are upheld in tandem. And so demand for the food produced here is continually growing. The farm's delicious high-quality beef comes from Herefords, who are 100% pasture-fed on grass, clover, straw, and a deep-rooted legume, all grown here. The manure, which is produced in this farm, acts, in the words of the father of the organic movement, Sir Albert Howard, as an invisible labour source, sustaining the organisms which improve soil condition and structure. And that improved soil here at Fir Farm, in turn, sustains improved seed reduction. Half of this, I understand, will be a specialist crop, such as rye for local bread. All of them born here, and of course the straw will be used for cattle. It all feeds into an overall philosophy of creating a circular system. What is grown at Fir Farm goes back into the land or into the livestock that live on it. And the manner in which the land is cultivated here also ensures that Fir Farm provides a more welcoming habitat for wildlife, including hedgehogs, barn owls, and yellowhammers. Now, the Fir Farm model, of course, is not for everyone. It reflects, as all the best farms do, the individual passions of those who own and manage the land, the particular nature of the specific landscape, soil, and geography, and it also reflects a balanced judgment of where demand is likely to be for particular produce. But there is no doubt that the approach taken here at Fir Farm, integrating respect for environmental outcomes alongside healthy, high-quality food production, anticipates where public demand is heading. Fir Farm has chosen to go organic. And while only 3% of UK land is farmed organically at the moment, support among consumers for organic produce is growing, especially among younger people. 52% of organic consumers are millennials. Demand for organic British cheese from American consumers is growing. Demand from British households for the organic vegetables grown by suppliers such as Riverford is growing. And demand for organic meat from a new generation of butchers and restaurateurs is growing. This is not a trend which is going to fade, or an interest which is going to pass. The public, not just in Britain, but across the developed world, are taking more, not less, interest in where food comes from, and are more and more concerned to ensure that the approach we take to food production is sustainable, environmentally considered, and respectful of ethical considerations. So there is therefore a powerful incentive in the market for food producers to move to where demand is growing. It makes good commercial sense for farmers and food producers to think harder about animal welfare, environmental enhancement, and ethical practice in everything they do. Because that gives them, and indeed it gives Britain overall, a competitive edge by positioning us as a world leader in the production of the highest quality sustainable food. And that's why I reject the idea that putting the health of the environment at the heart of everything that we do at DEFRA is in any way inimical to the economic health of our farming sector, because the two act in harmony. But what I will acknowledge is that while the market rewards high-quality food producers, there are other goods which farmers produce which the market does not reward. Farmers safeguard habitats for the wildlife they cherish. They preserve the landscapes which move the heart and connect us to the natural world of which we are all inescapably part. They also plant the trees which act as the carbon sinks we need. They manage the river catchments from which our water flows. And they connect our rural communities through a delicate web of relationships, sporting, commercial, and personal, which need to be better understood and better supported by decision makers and government. And it is because these public goods, environmental, cultural, and social, are not provided for by the market that our farmers need financial support. And I'm determined to ensure that we provide it in the most sensitive and effective way. And that's where I hope that our consultation can help in establishing a new consensus about the vital importance of investing both in the health of our precious landscapes and the health of rural life. I'm very conscious that we need to restore significant parts of our country to proper environmental health. That heathland, peatland, and blanket bog, for example, in our uplands, need protection and restoration, not least from poor forestry practices in the past. But I'm also acutely aware that in thinking of the uplands, we need to think carefully about how we can support our hill farmers, many of whom operate on the tightest of margins. Support for hill farmers is important because we recognise that the health of the country overall, socioeconomically and culturally, is enhanced as a result of people in rural areas running businesses like theirs. The aesthetic value of landscapes like the Lake District is one part of it. The sense of historic connectedness with a shared past that these farms provide is something else that I believe we all value, but it is hard to reckon in commercial terms. However we choose to define and reward the public goods that hill farmers in areas such as the Lake District and Northumberland provide, one thing that I do know is that we would all be poorer if we saw these communities depopulated and deprived of a secure economic future. And there are other environments too, from water meadows in the south of England to the Norfolk Broads, where livestock farming helps contribute to the health and to the harmony of the historic landscapes that we cherish. So finding a way of sensibly supporting responsible livestock farming in environments and communities which we value for cultural reasons has to be, I think, part of our future approach to farming support. The approach, therefore, that we want to take is, in Byron's words, to love not man the less, but nature more. And here, the example of the Sustainable Food Trust has been invaluable. Your work in setting out how to develop metrics, which can be used to reward farmers not just for improving soil health and increasing biodiversity, but also building human and social capital, strike an important balance, enhancing natural capital and enhancing human capital at the same time. And it's these kinds of high-quality contributions to our consultation which will help our policy to evolve. And I believe that if collectively we make the right decisions for British farming, we can then create a model for the planet. In 20 years' time, I want us to be able to say that the UK has led global change in the way that food is farmed and made. I want us to be leaders in adopting sustainable methods. I want us to see more farm wildlife, less food waste, better soil quality, lower carbon use, and a view of land as a sustainable production resource. I hope in the future there will be minimal use of antibiotics and higher standards of animal welfare driven by expert husbandry. And the result would then be that this country would have a worldwide reputation, even stronger than it has now, for producing healthy, nourishing food full of vital nutrients that improve human well-being. And where processing does happen, in Britain it will be done sympathetically, so as to preserve and to promote the nutritional quality of food. Overall, Britain would be a world leader in producing food more ethically. Standards of traceability and safety would underpin the food chain more strongly than even today. And as a result, our food, British food, would have built a global reputation that's second to none. That's our ambition at DEFRA, and with your help here, I hope we can grasp that historic opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary of State. His vision, I think, is shared by everyone in the room. And of course, we're on the threshold of the end of the consultation where the vision will need to start to be made flesh. And I suspect it is in that area that I look forward very much to an exchange with you and with Minette in a few minutes. But before we go into that exchange, I'd now like to invite Minette, as I said, recently elected President of the National Farmers Union, to share her thoughts and respond to the Secretary of State. Minette.
Patrick, thank you so much, and thank you for the invite to be here today. One of the sort of key parts of my job is going around and recruiting new members. So when I came and saw Paddy in the autumn, I never realised that this was going to be part of the package of getting him into NFU membership, or indeed that this place existed. So it's a delight to be here. And I thoroughly enjoyed my chat with Paddy then, and hearing all about this incredible business that Michael has referred to. So a brief introduction to the NFU. I'm here as president of the NFU, representing 50,000 farming and growing businesses right across England and Wales. Everything from organic milk to broccoli, we cover every single sector, and I think mirror the huge diversity that we're also proud of that makes up UK production. I'm just going to give an apologies for the slides, and also apologies. It's worse than being in between the lunch break, actually. Standing between you and questions to the Secretary of State is not a good place to be. So I'm really just going to give a sort of strategic overview of how we see things,